welcome to my channel. Today we're doing the video that I was looking forward to all year. Every time I bought a palette or I got a palette as a gift, I started thinking about where it would rank at the end of the year. Of course, I didn't know how many palettes I would buy. Initially I thought it would maybe be around 10, but then as the year progressed I started buying a little bit more palettes. I felt like my collection was lacking a lot of basic good palettes that I could use all the time. So next year I'm certainly scaling down a lot, also with my foundations. But this year I have 38 palettes to share and to rank for you. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, please consider subscribing. I'm Cecile, I'm 28 years old, I live in the Netherlands, and I try to upload 2 to 3 times a week with makeup related content, and I love talking about palettes, color, anything, luxury, sometimes drugstore, high-end for sure. And yeah, I would love to share those things with you, so please consider subscribing. Now let's get into the ranking, because I feel like this is going to be a longer video. Alright, at number 38 we have the Makeup Revolution, and now this is a mouthful, the Forever Flawless Flamboyance palette. I thought the flamingo was also in the name. I call it the Flamingo palette. And may I preface this with that I kind of like all of these palettes. I don't get any palettes in PR, of course, and I try to pick out palettes that I think I'm going to like. So in most cases I was pretty lucky, and I at least sort of liked something about the palette. So even my number 38, it really wasn't that bad. I just never reached for this one after my initial 2 videos. This is what the color story looked like. And I did do one look using the blues and the pinks together, I think. And that's actually one of the videos that is watched the most on my channel. Not the most, but like number 5 or something. I was testing out some new products and this was one of them. And I really liked that look. But every other look I did with it was sort of... it was okay. Actually, for Makeup Revolution, this is not a bad palette at all. It's just... like I said, I never reached for it anymore. Maybe quality-wise, it shouldn't be the bottom spot, but also maybe I'll give this another shot. I don't think I'm going to declutter any of these palettes. Like I said, I was trying to grow my collection. Maybe in a couple of years I'll have so much that I want to declutter, but not right now. Right now I just want to keep everything close to heart. So that was number 38. At number 37, I have something that just was a little bit of a disappointment. It's the Pro palette by Catrice in the color Lavender Breeze. I actually did a full face of Catrice at one point, and I thought this was such a nice slim palette. The packaging is really nice and slim, like I said. It's called the Slim Eyeshadow palette. And I thought the color story was so nice. It had a nice range from light to dark. It had some pops of color. I thought this was going to be a very nice palette, and I still do think it is. It's just that these purples, they're just not as impactful as I'd like them to be. The quality just wasn't there. I guess I should have expected that. I still feel like if you're not too critical, this could be a nice palette. Yeah, looking at it now, I still feel like it's beautiful. Just every time I used it, it was a little bit of a disappointment. And I don't think I used it more than 3 times because of that. So that is number 37. Moving on to number 36, and we have something that packaging-wise really should be at the top, but this is the Stay Sassy palette by Revolution, one of Makeup Revolution's sister brands. And this is just so cute, and I didn't want to put it this low because I like using this for the packaging alone. I do still use this, but every time I do, I'm just so disappointed in the quality. This is a double-sided palette, and the color story is beautiful, except that half of these shades are duped within the own palette. And also, even these deep shades, they really don't go as deep when you put them on the eye with a brush. So every look you get sort of stays within that mid-tone range. And this is just so typical drugstore quality shades. They're really just not pigmented enough. They don't blend good enough. I think the color story is actually really nice, but even this white, it's just really, really faint. You can hardly see it when you put it on your eyes. I think it swatches alright, but then when you use your brushes, it's just... it's just not there. And I'm really sad about that because I really like Marie and I really like the Aristocats, but this one let me down just a little bit. But like I said, I'm not going to declutter it. Never, I think, because every once in a while I just want to use the cute packaging. Moving on to number 35. At number 35 I have this Starstruck palette by Got2b. Got2b also ranked in my foundation ranking. It ranked pretty high, but the eyeshadow palette just wasn't that good. A little bit the same story as with the Aristocats, only this one is a little bit more pigmented. I just find this color story a little bit more tricky to work with. You only have these bright pinks. It's like I knew I was going to get the Divine Rose 2 palette at some point, and it had this beautiful pink in it and some other shades that were very complementary to it, and I just wanted a preview. I wanted to see if maybe this one would be just as nice. You know, I knew it would take a little while for me to get the other palette, so I decided to try this one. I also wanted to try the brand, but these are very dry, by the way. I think they're a lot drier than when I bought the palette, which was in August. And also these, the shimmer shades are really subtle, but not as special like a Charlotte Tilbury one. It's just, I don't know. I didn't really have a good time playing with this palette, but the quality was a little bit better than the Makeup Revolution one. It seems like most of my drugstore palettes did rank a little bit lower, but there are some high-end options that also ranked a little bit lower. We'll get to those. At number 34 we have, I think, no, this is not, the Makeup Revolution X Soph palette. This is the third collab palette that they did, and I actually think the quality of this one is pretty alright. I can get decent looks out of this one. I just find the color story to be so basic. I know it's very colorful, but it is a rainbow palette with some neutral shades. And I don't even own any of those palettes, so it's not like it was a repeat for me. I feel like I'm going to keep this because it's my only rainbow palette. I just don't find those very inspiring. Actually, the shimmer shades in this one are fantastic. They're really pretty, and that's why it's ranking a little bit higher, because I just feel like, except for when you're going to do an actual rainbow on your eye, this color story is very limited. I like to have at least a lighter and a deeper shade within the same color family, and then mix and match a little bit. But this is just all midtones, all colorful, all very bright, standard colors. It's really, the shimmer shades are nice, but that's about it. Yeah, this is just a very boring palette to me. At number 33 we have our first high-end palette, and this is the Stone Vibes palette by Urban Decay. I do believe this was released a little bit earlier. I'm not ranking only palettes that were released this year. Most of them were, but I am also ranking some palettes that were new to me this year. This is one of those, and I thought this packaging was so beautiful, and I kept looking at it over the course of 2020 when it was released, but every time I looked inside I was a little bit disappointed. But at some point I decided to swatch some of these shades, and I thought they were really pretty and celestial. So I figured I would give it a try. But then I was disappointed again with the quality. Some of these shades are really nice and sparkly, but most of them are really lackluster, and I also don't really like the neutral shades in the corners. I just didn't really like the quality of those mattes either. So I still keep playing with this one. I'll probably use the center shades as topper shades on top of other palettes. But yeah, just overall a big disappointment. Number 32 we have a palette that I keep using and also keep getting a little bit disappointed by, but I really like this color story. This is the Red Velvet palette by I Heart Revolution. I really discovered Makeup Revolution this year, so I wanted to try some of their stuff, and I don't know, I'm not going to buy any more of it, I think. But this is such a beautiful color story, and I have used this quite a lot because it's the only reddish, pinkish color story that I own. The only trouble with this one is there isn't an actual bright red. Not a bright red shimmer, at least. You have to go a little bit more pinky, or you have to go a little bit more orange, or you can also go a little bit more neutral. But there's not that actual red velvet color that you would expect. And that's kind of what I bought it for, and I should have looked out for it better. But I still find this color story very inspiring. It's just the quality that's a little bit of a letdown. The shimmers are really satins at most. This is actually the best one. But they're just not sparkly enough for me. The mattes are just not bright, or maybe they're bright enough but they're just not pigmented enough for me. I still kind of like this one. I'll keep using it, but they did do one better palette than this one. At number 31, I unfortunately have a Charlotte Tilbury quad. And it's not that I don't like this quad. I actually really like the look that comes out of it. It's the Glamour Muse. It's just that the one shade that's supposed to be the showstopper is a very disappointing shade. It's this purple pop shade, and as you can see, there's hardly any pop on it. It's supposed to be this very glittery, ethereal shade, but it's not. It's more of a basic satin shade, and it just doesn't apply as well on the eyes. However, the other three shades are really pretty, and I really like the look that comes out of that one. So I'll keep using it, of course, but I hardly ever use the purple, and that's kind of what this palette is about. So usage-wise and my love for it wise, it should rank a lot higher, but it is a disappointment because of that one shade. At number 30, I actually have a very interesting palette. This is the Rude Cosmetics Roaring 20s The Reckless palette. They also have a more neutral version. I don't think this is bad at all. And we're now moving into the palettes that were sort of decent. And this color story is just delightful. I really like it. It's just that it's not the kind of color story I end up reaching for, and apart from a couple of shades, the shimmers are very basic and the quality is just not amazing. It's not an expensive brand at all. It's actually pretty cheap. I don't think this cost me any more than 20 euros. So I shouldn't be mad about it, and I still kind of liked it. Another reason why it's a little bit lower is because it's my most recent palette purchase. I bought 3 Rude Cosmetics palettes in December, and I did play with them a little bit, but I'm just not really sure about them, and they're not wowing me thus far. So I'm ranking this one at number 30. Alright, we're moving into the 20s. At number 29, I have the Douglas Interstellar Smoky palette. This is from a Dutch brand, or a German brand, at least it's sold in this region. So I'm sure most of you haven't even heard of this one, but it is actually one of my favorite color stories. It's just the quality is not completely there. And also there are some repetitive shades in this one. If you use this one, it looks like a beautiful black with blue shimmer, but it translates as a matte black on the eyes, and there is already a black matte. Also, these shades are very similar. This one is very disappointing. It's a little bit like the Charlotte Tilbury Glamour Muse one. It's just not as impactful as I'd like it to be. These shades are very similar. It's just, if they did half this palette for half the price, I would be happy as well, and then it would probably rank a little bit higher. This is not an expensive palette, but still, I do use it pretty often because I really like the color story, but I would like to replace this with something like the Viseart new Étoile palette that they released a couple of weeks ago. Maybe that would be on my bucket list. At number 28, we have the Beef Perfect Manifest Dream Big palette. And if you'd asked me when I bought this half a year ago, this would probably rank pretty high because I loved it at the time. But I haven't used it since, and that's probably because, well, first of all, it's messy. You can see how messy it is. But second of all, there's just a little bit too many neutrals in this palette. I've played with all the color combinations and they're really lovely, and I really like the shimmers, especially if you use a glitter glue, then they're fine. But there's just not enough variation to keep playing with this one. In the meantime, I've had more interesting color stories and I've played with those. So this one got a little bit left behind, I think. Quality is actually decent on this one, but not perfect. So yeah, maybe it'll get a little bit of a boost when spring comes around. For some reason I find this a spring palette, but for now 28 is where it is. At number 27 we have another Rude palette, and I actually think this is going to rank a lot higher in any other situation, but I only used this once. I really like this packaging. It's the City of Pastel Lights. And this is the It's beautiful, it's bright, it's neon, but there are some darker shades that you can use to make the outer corner deeper. This is my new favorite rainbow palette, I think. For some reason, this color story is a lot more interesting to me than the Makeup Revolution X Sauve one. They're just a little bit more vibrant, more interesting. It's not such a basic rainbow palette. It has a little bit more to it. So the one time I did use this, I was completely in love with it, but the quality wasn't perfect. The shades were not pigmented enough. I mainly really like the color story. So therefore, for now, it's ranking at number 27, and we'll see how it goes. Maybe it'll become a favorite. At number 26, I think we have our last Makeup Revolution palette, and this is actually something I really like. I just haven't used it that much lately. It's the Tasty Avocado palette by I Heart Revolution. This color story is just beautiful, and the quality is actually not that bad. I just discovered that there are a couple of shimmers in here that are really similar. The two greens are really similar, and those three blues are really similar. And I'm missing a bright green shimmer with a little bit more impact. So I find myself not reaching for this one anymore because I have those shimmers now. I have the Dior Nightbird palette that has the beautiful green shimmers. So I'm going to reach for that one over this one. But it has beautiful mattes, and I do really like this palette. Actually, the shimmer shades, some of them are really not that bad. This one is actually beautiful. It's just that to make this palette work, you have to use the blues. And sometimes I just want to use the greens. So therefore it's ranking a little bit lower. But for Makeup Revolution, this one was actually not bad at all. Then at number 25, I think we have our last drugstore-ish palette. This is the last Rude Cosmetics palette, and this is a lovely one. Look at that awesome unicorn. This is the Sin of Glittany, because this is an all glitter palette. This is what the palette looks like. These shimmers are really pretty, especially, where is it? This one, which looks like a pink, but actually has this beautiful green-blue shimmer duochrome action. And some of these I find really beautiful and refined, but others are just way too chunky. And I mean, this one has actual hearts in it, and I find that it ends up looking a little bit too childish on my eyes. I did use most of these colors already, and especially the finer ones I really loved, but the more chunky ones really weren't that pretty. And also an all shimmer palette is not the most useful thing. I didn't need one of these. I didn't have one, so I wanted to have one, but little hearts, they're very annoying. Also there's little stars in this one, and it just doesn't look as refined or mature as I'd like it to be. I like color, I like glitter, but this is just a little bit too childish for me. Still one of my favorite palettes for the packaging alone. Moving into number 24, we have an Uden's Eye palette, and it's a shame that this ranks a little bit lower, but I just find myself not reaching for this color story. This is the Red Dragon palette that Judy did in collaboration with Uden's Eye. The other two palettes rank a little bit higher. I really like this color story and I really like the quality. It's just, I hardly ever wear warm tones, and if I do, I like to keep it very neutral, like the eye I have on now, which we will talk about later. I really like playing with the greens in this one, so I do every now and then, but then it's not that often that I like to reach for a warm color story. It's just not something I'm really into right now. And if I do, I want it to be a little bit more punchy. I'd like there to be a bright orange in this one to pair with the bright red. Or I'd like there to be a dark green matte so I can actually make it an all green look. It's just, for a warm palette, it's a little bit too neutral for me, but Uden's Eye quality is really, really good. So nothing bad about the quality in this one, it's just a preference thing. At number 23, we have another Charlotte Tilbury quad. I have a couple of those in this video. This is the Pillow Talk Luxury Palette of Pops. This is actually a beautiful palette. I like to pair this with the Pillow Talk regular palette. I actually almost always use those two together. But on its own, this one just ranks a little bit lower because even though I really like these sparkles, they're not quite as sparkly as I'd like them to be. I'm not going to swatch everything, but I wanted to swatch these. Do you see? They're pretty, but they're not that actual pop shade that I was expecting from it. They're a little bit more regular shimmer shades. I guess I don't really find the quality that amazing, and I've seen better from Charlotte Tilbury, so that's why it ranked a little bit lower. I think this is the point that I'm starting to really like the palettes, use them a lot, and have little complaints about them. It's just a preference thing at the moment. So at number 22 we have the Viseart Soleil La Plage. This is the palette that they came out with this summer. I really enjoyed this one. I thought the bright yellow and the matte yellow really make it a very diverse palette, and also this dark brown. And I really like these shimmer shades. I've discovered pretty recently actually that you can use these Viseart shimmers quite like Charlotte Tilbury shimmers. So you can use them in the crease, you can make an all shimmer look, and it looks kind of sophisticated and nice. Only this one is a little bit more fun. So I guess I'm starting to appreciate a more subtle shimmer right now. And especially this middle shade, this blue one, is really a showstopper. So I really like this palette. I guess if you would ask me in the middle of summer, this would rank pretty high. But now I have a more winter appropriate favorite that ranks a little bit higher. At number 21, we have our only face and eye palette, I think, that is in this ranking. And this is the Charlotte Tilbury Pretty Blushed Beauty palette. She came out with these in May. I think she came out with 2. And I of course have the lighter one. And if you'd ask me what my favorite face palette was at the moment, this could be it. But if I'm looking at only the eyeshadows, these are just a little bit boring. I really like the quality though. This shimmer, this is what I expected from the other palette. These are nice and glittery. And these mattes are performing really nicely, or this matte I should say. The middle one is a satin. Beautiful eyeshadows, just a little bit boring. But if you look at the palette as a whole, then it's probably in my top 5. Rounding up the 20s, we have Lethal Cosmetics with the After Dark palette. This was my favorite spring palette this year. I actually did a video and I called it the ultimate spring palette or something. This was released last year, but I discovered it this year because Lethal is now available at Douglas and it wasn't before. So this is a beautiful, sort of bright, little bit more pastel. The color story, these shimmers are absolutely beautiful. It's just that I guess I've sort of done all the looks with this one that I wanted to do. Now I haven't used it in a couple of months, so I'm probably going to bust it out when January or February comes around. I guess I was sort of played out with this one. I did all the color combinations. I still didn't really figure out what to do with the green, and that's where my process ended. I think if I would pick it up right now, it would probably rank a little bit higher, but that's the case with a lot of these. I really like this matte white. It's pretty good. And I like the fact that there is a matte white in this one, because I think that's the only inner corner shade that is in this palette. Maybe this would rank a little bit higher if there was a sparkly white shade in this one, and something like an even deeper purple. I don't know, I guess there's just, this is really fun, but there's something lacking for me to make it an everyday palette. I guess I have to do a little bit more work with this one. And I don't mind that, but I guess right now this is how I feel about it. Alright, we've made it to the halfway point. At number 19, I have my first Huda palette, and I actually have quite a few of these. This is the Huda Brown Obsession Stuffy palette. This is the yellow one. And I think the quality of this one is really good. I really like the color story. The only thing is I don't really wear yellow colors that often. I do actually have a yellow shirt and sweater, and whenever I wear it I bust out this one. But apart from that, I don't really reach for this one. And of course I don't wear it with this sweater all the time. So I guess I like this one. It's just, no, there's really nothing wrong with this one. Like I said, from, what was it, 23 on up, I really like all of these palettes. I buy palettes that I think I'm going to like. But yeah, this one just isn't as inspiring to me as some of the other Huda palettes. At number 18, we have the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk palette. This I actually really like. I think it gives a beautiful subtle look. And I like to combine it with the palette of Pops, like I said. And I think this is a beautiful palette on me. I don't think you have to be you can be a lot deeper than me to use this one. On me it's actually already a pretty subtle look, but I like that sometimes. It's just, I haven't really done casual makeup for months now. I stopped doing my makeup when going to classes because of the time pressure. And I just do makeup for fun now, and then I like to bust out my more colorful palettes most of the time. So this one gets a little bit neglected sometimes. But whenever I pull it out, I really like my look. At number 17, we have a hidden gem of Uden's Eye. I don't think many people know how beautiful this palette is. I got it in my mystery box when they did that in May. My boyfriend actually bought the mystery box for me, so that's thanks to him that I have this one. This is the Elva 2 Mini Forest palette. And the funny thing is, this is still so inspiring to me. I used it at least 6 times already. For some reason, you can make this a very diverse palette. You can keep it neutral. You only have 3 shades to keep it neutral, but it is possible. Or you can make it really colorful and use the gold one as a yellow. And that also works. Or you can combine the two. You can make a matte colorful crease or a matte neutral crease. You can, every kind of shade is there in a matte and shimmer format. I haven't even tried to combine these two. That should also be really beautiful. And these shimmers are just amazing. And these blue and brown mattes are really nice and pigmented. The only thing is, this is not a very deep palette. So I only reach for this one when I'm in a sort of fairy-like ethereal mood. And usually I like my depth, so that's why it's ranking a little bit lower, but like I said, I like all of these. At number 16 we have another member from the Brown Obsessions palettes. This is the Caramel palette. This color story I just find so much more inspiring than the yellow one for some reason. I got into doing like YouTube style makeup, like a whole face of makeup, pretty late. I did do it as a teen for my dance recitals, but I guess we kept it pretty simple. We did use foundation and lipstick, but no actual eyeshadows. And I did get into eyeshadows, but not as heavily as I am now. So I didn't get on the warm shadow train as early as everyone else. I'm just getting on it right now. And this is my perfect warm shadows. The shimmers on this one are just really, really pretty. And I really like this bright orange matte. I just find this the perfect fall palette. And I know everybody's over this by now, so most people rank this pretty low. I think Patty Alonso actually ranked this as her lowest Huda palette. But I like it, and I thought the quality was pretty decent. And I like the looks that come out of this one. So this is a solid number 16. At number 15 we have the palette that I may have used the most of all of these. This is the Mitchell Head in the Clouds palette. I got this in the summer. It was released a year earlier, but I only got it this year. And this has endless possibilities. Even though there are actually a couple of shades that are almost dupes of each other. This is just, the shimmers are so nice and sparkly and the mattes are so visible on me. Even those pale yellows and those whites, they are really, I guess I don't have a difficult skin tone for things to show up on, but if a pastel color is bad, it won't show up on me. So I like this one. The only gripe I have with this one is that all of these dark mattes look the same. I wish there was one that was really blue or really teal or really black. But they're all sort of this, even this one, they're all sort of this grayish purple tone, and it doesn't really matter which one you use. And that really makes the palette a lot less diverse than you would think. But I do have one favorite look, and I don't repeat my looks often, but I really like the look where I put the shimmery yellow in the inner part of my lid, make it transfer into the minty shades, the turquoises, and then go into the blues. And then I put the shimmery white in the inner corner, and I just like that look. I like to make it diagonal. Even my boyfriend liked that look. So I did it a couple of times. So yeah, therefore I really like this palette. It's probably going to be a favorite for a long time. Alright, we're at number 14, and at number 14 I'm ranking the Moonspell number 2 palette by Lunar Beauty. I wanted to like this palette more than this. I really do, because I really like this color story. I get on every bandwagon. I also get on the current favorite color, which is sort of this purple reddish tone. I also really like those. It's just that this palette is not as diverse as you would think it is. I really like the quality, except for this red shade. And I find some of these shimmers are just not as impactful. However, the one shade that makes up for all of it is this one. This is one of the most beautiful shades I have in my collection. And I also really like the quality of the colorful mattes, and I think I can get very pretty looks with this one, but they're all either purple or red. There's not as much diversity as you would think. So yeah, but I still really like this one. I still find it very inspiring, and therefore it's ranking a lot higher. Quality-wise, I think there are some palettes below that are actually better. Also, I really like this packaging. I mean, it's a book. At number 13, I have the second Udensai collaboration palette, which is the Hummingbird palette that was done with Tina from the Fancy Face. This is such an inspiring palette to me. I did use it the day before yesterday because I had a couple of palettes that I wanted to figure out. I did actually use this quite a lot of times. I did a 3 looks 1 palette video with this one on my channel. I don't do those very often. The thing is, you can get very diverse looks with this one. Like, you can make it even a little bit more neutral, but it's definitely a palette that's suited more for a deeper skin tone. There's not a light shimmery shade that I can use as an inner corner, and I like using the blue one as an blending out shade, but for an inner corner shade it's just not pigmented enough. And I don't like this blue. I know everyone loves it, but it's a very different color than it appears in the pan. It's a beautiful color, but I would have loved it a lot more if it was as deep as it looks in the pan. Then the palette would have been a lot more diverse. Now I find I reach for the purple shade a lot, which is beautiful, but it's not perfect, but I really like it. At number 12, we have my only Nabla palette that I ever bought, I think, and that I bought this year. This is the Nabla Dreamy 2 palette. I haven't used it that much, but every time I do, I just find the shimmers to be so nice and ethereal and sparkly, and I really like doing the red in the crease, deepening up with this brownish blackish shade, and then using the blues on the lid. My only gripe with this one is that this glittery white is actually a little bit more of a gold when you put it next to the blue, and also it doesn't really stick to my inner corner for some reason. So it's not an all-rounded palette for me. I do use it as such, but then I'm also a little bit disappointed by that one shade. And I find this gold shade to be not as pretty, but all the other shimmer shades are really beautiful, and I really like this color story. It's actually perfect for winter. At number 11, we have one of my newer palettes. I actually kept the box on this one. This is the Nightbird palette by Dior. This is from their Birds of a Feather collection that I did in the autumn this year. But I only got it a couple of weeks ago. So I have only used it a couple of times, but I can already tell it's going to be a favorite. It's this beautiful, look at that pattern. These shades are just so nice. They're glittery, they're dimensional, they make a beautiful look when you use them all 5 together. But I'm sure if you only use 1 or 2, it's also a very pretty look. This is when you want something that's not necessarily traditional. Like, there's not a traditional deepening up shade, for instance, but I still really like the look on this one. Someone commented on my video where I used this one that it looked good on my skin tone. I think that is the case. I think this is a pretty light palette, and I'm also very fair, so I think that works out. I've discovered this year that even though I prefer a deepening up shade, I don't always need one. This is one of the examples of a palette where I feel like it's pretty, that's a little bit more ethereal, forest-like. A little bit like the Mini Forest palette from Udensai. Alright, we're moving into the top 10. This is pretty fun to do, I must say. At number 10, I have the Amrezy palette by ABH. Of course, this was released a little bit earlier, but like I keep saying, I got it this year. I actually got it as a present. This is such a beautiful color story. For some reason, I don't use the blue as often as I thought I would. I guess it would have helped if there was another cool toned shade in this one to pair with it. But I keep reaching for these shades all the time. And I like the fact that there are so many possibilities for deepening things up. You can keep it sort of brown. This one is deep enough. Or you can deepen it up with the black. Or you can keep it more pinky and deepen it up with Jugo. And for some reason, I'm always drawn to this color. Every time I wear this, I feel like a cupcake, and I'm not sure why. It's not like I ever eat purple cupcakes, but that's just the vibe that's giving me. I know most people like this shade most, Barb, and it's beautiful. It's just, I kind of like this one. And I also like the pressed glitters on this one. It's just such a beautiful Barbie palette. I think if I had to pick only one palette to keep, this would be a contender because it's pretty well rounded. I have glitter hands. At number 9, we have another Huda palette. This is the Huda Wild Jaguar palette. I think this is a favorite amongst many people. I did recently do a video using this one in combination with the rose quartz, and they combine beautifully. But on its own, it's also stunning. I really like this middle shade. It's such a nice, cool lavender grayish shade. This palette is just so cool, and every look you get out of this is pretty dark, but still there are some options to sparkle, and I really like the looks that come out of this one. I know for a lot of people there is an inner corner shade missing, but since the other shades are so deep, I just use one of the other shades to put in my inner corner, and I can always grab something else. I hardly ever do, but I could. So for a 9 pen, I think this is very diverse. The only shade that really doesn't do anything for me is this one. It's pretty much my skin tone, maybe even a little bit deeper, and I don't have any use for that. But apart from that one, this is a really beautiful palette. At number 8, we have our final Udenzai palette, and this one is the Giant Wolves palette that they did in collaboration with Annette from Annette's Makeup Corner. This is my favorite from the three collab palettes that they did, because I really like how dark this color story is. And actually, from the 3 palettes, I think the quality of this one is the worst. I can't really... Okay, this looks beautiful like this, but whenever I use a brush with this one, it's just not perfect. For some reason, I find the quality of the other 2 palettes to be even better. But still, this color story is the prettiest to me. The only thing that is missing from this one for me, or actually 2 things. I wish there was a lighter matte shade so I could blend things out, but I can use the Hummingbird palette for that one. And also I'd like there to be a different light shimmer. This one is actually pretty yellow and it doesn't really stick to my inner corner. I wish there was a little bit more of a smooth, actually pearly shade. I know that's a lot to ask, but we are getting into the top palettes, of course, so there's not a lot to complain about. Those are my only 2 things that I would do differently, but for some reason this palette really speaks to me. And it's not just because I like wolves, and it's not just because I like Annette. It's also just the color story and the quality of this one. Alright, we're moving into number 7. And at number 7 I have my first Pat McGrath palette. This is the Vine Rose 1. This was actually the first palette I got from her. I got it sort of as a birthday present to myself. And I really like this one. I especially like this shade. This shade makes this palette. And in all the 3 palettes that I've used from Pat McGrath, I still think this is the most beautiful Blitz Astral shade that she ever made. I also like the fact that I can use these metallics sort of in the crease, like I said with the Viseart palette. I could also do that. But overall, this palette is a little bit more limited. And for some reason, these 2 shades over here, they don't work as well on me. They don't really pop on my skin tone. I think they are prettier when you're a little bit deeper. So I guess I mainly like using this shade. And even though I only use a couple of shades in this one, it's still one of my top palettes because I really like those shades. It's just not as versatile to me or as perfect to me as the other 2 Pat McGrath palettes. At number 6 we have another Dior palette. I won't say quad, but it's a quint. This is the Black Bow palette. This is from their regular collection. They released it in 2020, but I only got it as a Christmas gift that year, so I used it in 2021 for the first time. And this is my favorite Dior palette by far. These shimmers are just, they're so beautiful. I am going to swatch a couple of more. This is more of a topper shade, but a really nice gray one. This silver metallic is such a stunning shade. The black is really nice and buildable, and it doesn't give any fallout actually. And this shade is very interesting. I use it a little bit less, but it's a very interesting shade. And that white is very pigmented, so really usable, really good quad. I like using smoky eyes. Or I like doing smoky eyes with this one. Alright, we're moving into the top 5. At number 5, I have another Pat McGrath palette, and this is the Bronze Seduction palette. I'm sure I got this as some sort of special occasion gift for myself, but I can't remember which one it was. But I got this one for myself. And I know this is a lot of people's favorite palettes, and I actually really like this one because it has 3 of those super glittery shades, and I also really like this formula with the red. It's just that every time I use this I have to do a neutral crease, and I wish there was a little bit more variation. There could have been like a red matte. Would that have been a lot to ask? For some reason this just doesn't give me the variety that I'm looking for. And also these 2 bronzy shades I don't ever use because I want to use those Blitz Astral shades. So they're a little bit... I wish there would have been more mattes so I could do a little bit more of a colorful crease. For instance, there's this beautiful greenish shade on my middle finger. Greenish goldish shade, and wouldn't that have been beautiful if there was a greenish matte to pair with that one? I would have loved that. So this is not perfect to me, but still it's beautiful. It's Pat McGrath. I mean, it's amazing. At number 4 we have the other Fizzy Art palette that I was hinting at earlier in the video, and this is the Cashmere palette, the Étendue Cashmere. This is actually my favorite neutral-ish palette. I mainly like using these more purpley shades, but I like the neutral shades as well. I know this was also mentioned by Kinky Sweat in her top 5 video, and I was surprised by that, but I'm really not, because I really like this as well. This is a palette that I can do an all shimmer crease with, and it's a beautiful look. It's very similar to this one, except with a little bit different tones. But I could also do a more traditional matte and shimmer combination, but I don't really. I don't like using that palette for that reason. This palette for that reason. I like using it for the shimmer shades. But it's a really well-rounded palette. It goes from really light to really dark in both color families. It has shimmers, it has mattes. It's just a really good palette. And I find this packaging to be really cute. At number 3 we actually have the palette that I'm wearing on my eyes right now. I'll come a little bit closer. So this sparkly goodness is the Celestial Pearl palette by Charlotte Tilbury. I also keep this one in a box, but the packaging itself is just as pretty, or actually a lot prettier. This is what the packaging looks like. This is one of the holiday palettes that they released this year, and this is just such a beautiful ethereal palette, but neutral. And whenever I'm in the mood to look a little bit more elegant, but I still want to shine, that's when I pull out this one. I did use it on several occasions when I went to parties or friends, and I don't know, it just feels so beautiful on this one. It also works really well in combination with a bright red lip or some other bright color. You can really make other parts of your face shine too with this one, but this is just a beautiful addition. I'm currently using all 4 shades on my eyes, and it's beautiful, but it's also beautiful when you use only a couple. I really like this Baked Chalet shade. This one is a duochrome from gold to pink, and it looks really pretty on me. And I did see a video from someone that had a little bit of a deeper skin tone, I think medium tan, and it also looked beautiful on them. So I guess this is a more well-rounded palette than I thought, because it actually doesn't go that deep, but I like that look sometimes. I'm starting to gain interest in that look. At number 2 we have my favorite Pat McGrath palette that I tried this year, and this is the Divine Rose 2. This is the palette I was supposed to get when I did my thesis, but it's taking a little bit longer, so I got it as a Christmas present. This is of course what it looks like, and I love this color story. And the funny thing is, I thought I was going to go straight for the multichrome, but I haven't even used it on my eyes yet. I'm just so fascinated by these 3 golden shades. I did do an all shimmer look with this one quite recently on my channel, and I paired it with a bright red lip, and I thought it was stunning. But I also really like staying in this corner and keeping it a little bit more subtle. I feel like these 2 mattes give me exactly the diversity that I need. This one is a little bit lighter than most of our mattes are, so it even works for my pale skin. And I really like using this bright pink all over. This is a beautiful shimmery shade. The only reason, I'm going to get dramatic. The only reason this isn't number 1 is because there isn't a light enough shade for me to use as an inner corner shade. I do use this one or this one, but they're actually a little bit deeper than my skin tone, and they're beautiful, so it's okay. But that's the only reason it's not ranking at number 1. Because ranking at number 1 is the Huda Beauty Rose Quartz palette. I knew it from the moment I saw this, that well, I guess I didn't know it. I thought it was going to be the Pat McGrath, but this one does have a light enough shade for me. I really like this packaging. I like the fact that there are so many different kind of shades. And even though I think the Pat McGrath is technically more special, this is one I'll wear more often. And I'll actually like the looks that I do a little bit more with this one. There are some lighter mattes, some lighter shimmers, some very deep mattes and deep shimmers. There are some more browny rosy tones, some more purpley rosy tones. There are some blues. This amazing blue shade paired with this one, it's just so galactical. Galactic? Galactic. It's so stunning, and I really like the quality of this one. This was actually my first big Huda palette that I ever tried, and the quality is so much more amazing than the small ones, which I already love. So I just had to give it to this one. It's so versatile, I've used it so much, and it deserves to be my #1 spot. And with that, we have arrived at the ending of my ranking. Let me know if you liked this video. It was a long one for me. Give it a thumbs up if you did like it, and subscribe if you want to see more. And thank you so much for watching.